Today on Locked On NBA, Steve Ballmer says he didn't know anything about Kawhi's secret deal. Ben Simmons is considering a major change. Plus, are we sleeping on the Timberwolves?
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is closer than you think, and right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. Download the FanDuel app to get started. I'm Wes Goldberg, and we are talking about whether or not the Timberwolves should be considered among the West's elite. Ben Simmons considering retirement. And we'll look ahead to this weekend's Hall of Fame enshrinement in a minute. We're doing it with the help of Locked On's local experts. And I have two of the best with me, as always, from the Locked On Nuggets podcast. He's a senior NBA writer from the Action Network, Matt Moore. Matt?
Happy Friday to everybody. Hall of Fame enshrinement tomorrow featuring Dwight Howard, who is absolutely deserving this, and Carmelo Anthony, who got to play in the Olympics.
And from Locked On Bulls, he's also a Bears and Bulls creator for Bleacher Report. It's Haize. Haize, do you agree with Matt?
Yeah, I mean, a Hall of Fame is such an honor. I think all these guys are all worthy of being into the Hall of Fame. It's a really solid class this year. Matt's just a hater. Like, I've noticed more and more, like, Matt's specific hate of certain people. I love it because it is truly who Matt Moore is as a person, but it's just crazy a little bit.
Run deep. Don't
Headlining
abandon
this class. Carmelo Anthony, Dwight Howard, and Sue Bird. I mean, 4 championships between the three of them. That's amazing.
Also, shout out to Billy Donovan for getting in.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of like NBA fans are gonna be like cocking their head at that. Like those Florida teams were
absolutely
unbelievable.
Yeah.
And if you look at his NBA again, I will say this: Billy Donovan deserves to go in the Hall because he got a team with Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan centered with Nikola Vucevic to be top 10 in defense.
Maybe more.
Gets him in.
He might deserve it more for that than the Florida team.
Top 5 that first year, right? Like, it's of them being together is ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
Leading off today's show again is the Kawhi Leonard scandal, and we have new details as reported by our own John Corrales about how much Kawhi was promised by Aspiration after signing an extension with the Clippers in 2021. According to Corrales, Kawhi had cut a separate deal for an additional $20 million in stock options, which would have brought his total promised compensation to $48 million. Corrales talked about this last night on Locked On NBA.
$8 million that Kawhi Leonard was paid was only part of the deal because he had a second, even more secret deal with Aspiration, but really it was with Joseph Sandberg, one of the co-founders of Aspiration, who through a separate side venture cut a deal with Kawhi Leonard, according to my source, that promised Kawhi Leonard $20 million worth of Aspiration stock. Now, it's important to note that Aspiration stock never became fluid. It ultimately became worthless because Sandberg was indicted and pled guilty to a massive fraud that was mostly unrelated to Aspiration. And they never went public. And so the $20 million that was part of the deal just kind of like it disintegrated, right? It never came to pass. But the important thing about all that is it brings it to $48 million in total promised compensation, which now closely matches the $50 million that Steve Ballmer had committed to invest in Aspiration. As far as the salary cap circumvention, like that, I think that the way my source characterized it, I think is similar to what Pablo Torre's sources have characterized it. I think everybody kind of understood that this felt like a way to circumvent the salary cap.
So great reporting there by John Corrales. You could find all his work over at Locked On NBA Game Night as well as Locked On Celtics. And we're getting even more details, guys. So a lot to get into here. Steve Ballmer is also denying any wrongdoing here. He told Ramona Shelburne on ESPN on Thursday that he did not circumvent the salary cap and that he supports an investigation into the alleged $28 million that Kawhi made from Aspiration, and now bankrupt Green Banking Company that Steve Ballmer had initially invested in. Ballmer said he did introduce Kawhi to leadership at Aspiration, but that was it. Quote, the introduction got made and then they were off to the races on their own. We were not involved. I eventually learned that they had reached a deal. I have no idea what that deal was. End quote. So again, there is a ton of layers to this as we keep peeling them back. There's more and more that we got to get through. But how do you square Corrales' report, since confirmed, by the way, by Pablo Torre, and Steve Ballmer trying to distance himself from Kawhi and aspiration, Matt?
So here's a good question for you. Is one of the key details that John reported on was the actual total amount. So it's 48 million compared to 50 that Ballmer put in. So that's extremely close. So my question actually is,
where's the other $2 million?
Where's the other 2 million? And what was that for? Because if it was in essence payment for this, that also kind of implicates things a little bit differently, I would imagine, from a legal perspective as well. The other hilarious part of this, I just want to make sure everybody's aware of this from John's reporting, because it's absolutely hilarious. The Clippers endorsement deal was ended early due to breach of contract. Leonard had never received any actual money in the $20 million stock deal, as the shares never went liquid. He is also still owed a portion of the original $28 million. His LLC, KL2 Aspire LLC, is listed among the creditors in the bankruptcy filing. The dude went after his if this was a no-show job, he tried to get listed in the bankruptcy filing for his no-show job. Unbelievable. Ballmer goes on not the offensive, but the defensive last night, going on SportsCenter, making himself out to be the victim. It's going to be a very hard sell. Zach Lowe this morning expressing the outrage and shock among NBA executives who would never do such a thing. I'm skeptical all the way around here. I think I will say this is such a story, Haize. Everyone's kind of like, they're just going to brush this under the rug. The biggest thing here is that the Clippers, in getting caught, embarrass the league. And the one thing that actually spurs the NBA to take serious action is when you embarrass other owners. They embarrassed other owners, and in their minds, because the money did not go into revenue sharing, they stole from them. Billionaires care very much about being stolen from. So if this is proven for there to be a connection, if the league finds wrongdoing, Haize, I mean, we're not going to have seen a punishment like this, I don't know, ever.
I agree. I know yesterday we were kind of in and out on if something was going to happen. Like, if the NBA's own internal investigation comes up with even half of what Pablo has come up with, I think that you have to punish them. Like, if you verify any part of this, you have to punish them. With you going into the place that we're going into now, where like half the teams last year didn't pay the luxury tax. 15 teams in the NBA didn't pay the luxury tax. That may be the most in recent memory. And so if you're going to try to circumvent the luxury tax, especially now in the era of the second tax apron, like, this is something that I wouldn't be surprised if more owners are trying to do, because everybody wants to stay away from that dreaded second tax apron. So you have to attack swiftly in this one. You have to punish harshly in this one, because you want to do as much as you can to turn other owners who are even thinking about doing something like this away. And not only is it an embarrassment because you got caught in other things like this is just bad. This is it's been a bunch of bad publicity for the NBA recently, and this isn't good at all, and it continues that. So the NBA cannot afford to take this one lightly at all.
There's no punishment too heavy. I've said it before. I'll say it again. They have to make an example of the Clippers, whether or not this is going on behind the scenes in other places or whatever. Matt, you made the point yesterday. Hey, they got caught, and you just made the point now, and it's the best point. You can't embarrass the league, and they have to make an example out of the Clippers, and I think they probably will be made an example of if something's caught here. Just also for people that, this happens all the time, $28 million for something like this is a lot of money. Even for somebody like Kawhi Leonard, who's made over $300 million in his career, that's $7 million a year as paid out through 4 years. That's what this would be with aspiration. His New Balance contract is reported at $5 million a year. His shoe deal, which he does a lot more for. He wears the shoes. He's in commercials. He's making $5 million a year for that, compared to about $7 million a year. And he, by the way, still owed that $7 million, as Matt pointed out here, for doing nothing, for doing absolutely nothing for this fraudulent company. It's pretty wild. That's the part where I say, okay, this is a little bit different than some other cases and some other sort of sponsorship deals. Last word on this, Matt, and then we'll get out of here.
I continue to ask the question of, and as all these executives and teams come out with their shock and appall, do we really want to go looking? And my answer is probably yes, because I just think that it's public interest to know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I am just extremely skeptical of the idea that this is completely insane and never before heard of. And I really like to know, if it's true that this is so exceptional, how this came about, and that maybe is the biggest question here. Whomst was the one that came up with this idea and left a paper trail to where Pablo Torre did in fact find out.
Well, we're going to keep peeling back layers to this, right? There's more and more reporting to this. I'm sure this will not be the last time we talk about the Kawhi Leonard scandal on this program or on the Locked On Podcast Network. But coming up next, we'll stick with the Western Conference and talk about a team that has flown under the radar but has a chance to return to the conference finals after this. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app on anything. Looking ahead to our next segment, the Timberwolves over-under for their win total is set at 49.5. They won 49 games last year. They won 56 games the year before that. But remember, they started last season slow. Remember, they traded for Karl-Anthony Towns. They traded away Karl-Anthony Towns, got Dante DiVincenzo. He got off to a slow start. They were working in Julius Randle and all of that. They finished the year strong. And as we're going to talk about here in a second, I kind of like the over here. Use FanDuel to place your bets on over-unders for the NBA season and for the NFL's opening weekend. Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. If you've been listening for a long time, please support the program by hitting that subscribe button on YouTube. We spent some time yesterday talking about the Rockets and the Nuggets, guys. The Thunder are the defending champs, and all of those teams figured to be near the top of the Western Conference and gotten a ton of the attention this offseason. But it doesn't seem like people are talking about the team that made the Western Conference Finals in each of the last two seasons, and that's the Minnesota Timberwolves. Let's hear from Ben Beacon of Locked On Wolves, who predicts a fast start for the Wolves.
So I want to start with a team prediction. Ready for this? Okay. I'm not giving a win total prediction yet. And I spent a lot of time the other day on, hey, I think right now I'd have the Wolves third in the West. I know the conventional wisdom is the Wolves are fourth at best. And it's, I don't know if it's wisdom. Conventional thought right now, the national thought is that OKC, Denver, Houston in some order are all ahead of Minnesota. I'm not going to give you a win total prediction. I'm not going to say anything other than what I've already said about how I think they still finish third in the Western Conference this year. But what I will tell you is that I think on New Year's Day, when the calendar turns to 2026, the Timberwolves will have a record of 24-7. And you know what? While we're at it, I'm going to adjust it. We'll call it an even 25 wins. I'm going to say that Minnesota has 25 wins, is 25-6 when the calendar flips to January 1st, 2026.
So, Haize, only two teams had 25 wins by January 1st last year, Cleveland and Oklahoma City. Is Ben crazy here? 25 wins for the Timberwolves. Do you think we're sleeping on Minnesota? And do you think they'll get off to a start like that?
I do think we're sleeping on Minnesota a bit. I do, and I think some of that was due to the struggles that they had last season, as you mentioned, like incorporating new players, things like that. Julius Randle had probably the best stretch of his career in the playoffs last year, and so I think that they can get off to a hot start this year. 25-6, though, I don't know if they can get off to that hot of a start. It'll be crazy. Anthony Edwards would have to be on a tear to get that done. They still have point guard questions that I have, so there's still some questions on this team. I think this team is a lot better than people are giving them credit for. I just don't know if 25-6 is the right mark for them, though.
I'd have to look at like the strength of schedule, right? And it's not even just about. It's honestly the way I look at schedules now is not even about, how tough is this team that you're playing? It's like, okay, how many back-to-back do you have? How many rest days do you have? How many games of rest advantage do you have? How many home games of rest advantage do you have? Because like one little thing can mess all this up. It's as simple as, we would have won 25-6, but instead what happened was, we got the flu or COVID without being diagnosed as such. Like it went around the locker room and everybody was sick for 2 weeks. And so we lost 3 of 4. Like that's all it takes for that to happen to you. It just takes like Anthony Edwards had an ankle injury. Like there's just too much stuff that can go on. And if you want to say like, all right, let's assume that they're healthy. Like if you want to say like no illness, just absolute health. Even then, a big part of this is that an argument for them to be better this year is they were extremely unlucky in coin flip games last year. Those games that can go absolutely either way. Clutch is a thing. It's just not as much of a thing as the teams that are the best at it. There's outliers on both ends, and the Wolves were on the other end of it, where it was like they should have won more of these coin flip games. So they win all of those, then sure, but it's a very unlikely circumstance. I don't know who's going to start off with the best record in the West. Like obviously, we're all going to think it's OKC, but these things are often surprising. I'm not going to be surprised if after 31 games we look up and we're like, didn't expect to see that.
So the Timberwolves had the 4th best point differential in the league last year. Points to what you were talking about, Matt, where they just sort of lost a bunch of these games because of these coin flips at the end. But this was a quality basketball team. And I tend to agree that they're being slept on a little bit because when we have these conversations about the Western Conferences, can the Rockets dethrone the Thunder, the Nuggets with everything that they've done this offseason? And they deserve to be part of that conversation. But Minnesota has been in the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row. Do we think that they should be in that tier with those other teams, even though it does feel like we're not talking about them as much as those other teams?
Like, I don't know why we don't respect Final Four appearances more. We did this last year with the Pacers, and the Pacers aren't going to make it this year because Hallie's out. But we don't respect doing the thing. If you win the finals, we're like, you're a lock. They're going to win so many games. What could possibly slow them down? And then if you lose in the conference finals, we're honestly lower on you. Like we typically tend to be like, okay, good run, but like probably gonna regress. I just think making the conference finals is so much more a proof of concept. You make the conference finals, you won 2 playoff, you got a good enough seed for you to make it through 2 playoff rounds. That's tough, man. Like, especially in the Western Conference, it's tough. So yeah, like I think that they're being underrated because we don't have anything new to talk about and they feel kind of stale, which is surprising because if you look at last year, Anthony Edwards made this big leap with 3-point shooting. There are so many other areas where he can get better. And if he does, look out because that's an MVP guy.
Anthony Edwards is the reason to believe that this team can, like, not to say he's the only one, but like he's the reason to believe like he's not done scratching the surface of who he can be as an NBA player. So as he continues to evolve, which he is still doing, whether you just look at it as a refinement rather than him adding a lot to his bag or whatever it is, like there's still a lot to uncover there. And if Anthony Edwards hits this next level leap, which is possible this season, yeah, they could be right up there. I wouldn't be surprised if they do go to another Western Conference Finals, and maybe depending on how things shake out, they may get lucky and make it out of it. But the Timberwolves are definitely one of the best teams in the NBA, and they have Anthony Edwards there. And I think that this team now, building off the chemistry that they were able to forge over the course of last season and going off a playoff run with the majority of that team staying the same outside of losing to Kill Alexander Walker and some other changes there, there's a lot of reason to think that this is going to be not just a good team, but a great team next season. And I hope that we see it because Anthony Edwards is one of my favorite players in the league.
Will anybody go on record and just rank them? Let's rank the top 4 teams in the Western Conference. Is Minnesota 4th? Where are they?
Go ahead, Haize.
Okay. So OKC's still number 1. And then I'd go Denver number 2. I just really believe in Denver. They still have Jokic.
We know how you feel about Houston.
Houston's definitely going to be number 3 there. And then I say number 4. They could be number 4. It can go anywhere between the Lakers, the Timberwolves. I even think the Clippers are going to be a really good regular season team, but I'd say between the Lakers and Timberwolves, they'll be the 4th seed in the West.
The right way to kind of think about this is that think about like a reasonable consensus expectation, right? A reasonable expectation is that all of us experts get 3 out of 4 right. OKC, we feel pretty locked in on.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably one of Houston or Denver lives up to expectation. The other one slips, right? So that to me is what the argument for the Wolves being 3rd is. Like one of Denver or Houston will either have a year from hell where nothing goes right and all the injuries hit them, or they just aren't as good. And that opens the door for the Wolves to move up. I have to cop to this though. I have them 5th because I have a very surprising team in 4th right now. This is based off a schedule. I got the Memphis Grizzlies 4th in the West. So if you ask me to just ballpark it, not based on my numbers, I would definitely have the Wolves as the 4th best team in the Western.
Now, the Memphis Grizzlies have a tougher strength of schedule than the Minnesota Timberwolves, though.
So they do, but you have to look at it based off of home, rest, who they play, and also what the the rest advantages. So like mine accounts for who are you playing? What's the adjustment if the other team is on a back-to-back? Are you playing a team on, if you're on a back-to-back, are you playing a team on a back-to-back? It accounts for all those types of things, and that's why I come out with a slightly better strength.
So are you ready to finally admit that you're a Zach Edey fan? Are you ready to finally admit that, Matt?
Go Edey. Most improved player. Give it to the big fella.
I thought you were banking on this because of the ankle injury. Maybe the fact that he might not be there. That might be why you have him 4th.
It's Brandon Clark season, baby.
Look, turns out I was right about the theme for this segment. Are we sleeping on blank? And we're sleeping on the Grizzlies, evidently. Sleeping so much on the team that's being slept on that we didn't even talk about them until the very end of the segment. But we are going to move on. We're going to talk about Ben Simmons. Is his career over? Is he considering it? Plus, the Bulls making headway on an agreement with Josh Giddy. We'll talk about all of that next here on Locked On NBA. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. The Locked On Podcast Network has a show for every team. So check out Locked On NBA Game Night, where John Corrales had his report about Kawhi Leonard. You can check out Locked On Clippers for more on the Kawhi Leonard situation. And, of course, Locked On Wolves for somebody who is a little bit higher on the Wolves than we are here. You can do all that and more by tuning in to the local experts on today's top stories. But let's start with the Bulls. Speaking of local experts, Haize, glad we're here because right before we started recording, Bobby Marks reported that the Bulls have offered Josh Giddey 4 years, $88 million to bring him back. That's up from their initial offer at the start of free agency of 4 years, $80 million. Haize, does that get it done?
I don't think so. I think it gets you closer there. And the fact that the Bulls are now willing to up their offer, I do think that opens up the floor for more negotiation. I think the sweet spot is going to be here around $24 million per. I think that's going to be the sweet spot between Josh Giddey wanting $30 million and the Bulls offering $20 million per year. I think that's what you're going to get there. Now, do you get there via incentives? How do you get there is going to be the thing. I think that or a player option in the last year, that's going to be a big thing to getting this deal done between Josh Giddey and the Chicago Bulls. But I don't think the $22 million per is going to be quite enough to get it done.
I'm really fascinated just to see how this works out, right? Because you got Cam Thomas, who finally was like, fine, I'll take the qualifying offer. So he's the first one to kind of break from this restricted free agency group and just go like, I'm going to bank on myself in 2026. I think the Bulls are a little bit more compromised here because the Bulls traded Caruso for him, and that already looks bad. Now, I don't know like what the perception is, because if you're Reinsdorf and you care, either of the Reinsdorfs, and you care about the perception of you losing the Alex Caruso trade and then not keeping your guy, why would you agree to the Alex Caruso trade in the first place? Because he's so valuable and was such better value for number. But I'm very curious just to see like who this breaks. I think the more interesting one is just like who comes to an agreement first, Giddey or Kuminga. And I still kind of think it's going to be Kuminga, because I do think that Giddey's representation understands Bulls don't have or correct me if I'm wrong here, what's plan B if they don't get this done, Haize? Like if they need to trade him, what's plan B for the future of the franchise?
I think I'm not saying that they have a straightforward plan B, but I do think the reason why the Bulls are more willing to kind of play hardball with Giddey is because we only have 6 players under contract at the end of the season. So if you need to completely reconstruct your roster, you have the most cap space in the league in the summer of 26. You have very few players under contract, so it offers you a chance to completely reconstruct your roster, because that's what they're going to have to do if they do that. And I think also like they were very confident in the backcourt of Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu before they traded Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey. So it could just go back to that plan. Both those guys are free agents at the end of the year, though. So I think that the Bulls, and the fact that you think Jerry Reinsdorf knows who Josh Giddey or Alex Caruso is crazy, because he hasn't been involved in the Bulls day-to-day in years. But I do think that if this does happen to where Giddey does walk, whether it's sign and trade, whether it's him taking the qualifying offer and then plan is for him not to return at the end of the season, the Bulls have kind of a natural, all right, let's just redo this whole thing over again, place in the summer of 26 that they can take.
I think my favorite part about all of this is that Chicago upped their offer by $8 million total, and it is still $2 million less than what Patrick Williams is making on a 4-year, $90 million contract. Matt, I think we found where those $2 million
5
went.
years, 90.
5 years, 90. Okay.
Yeah.
Still $2 million less than total value. So we found the $2 million. There are still some high profile free agents out there, and one of them is Ben Simmons, who has reportedly drawn interest from teams like the Knicks. But this week, the New York Post, Stephon Bondi, reported that Ben Simmons could opt to retire instead. Simmons is only 29, hasn't played in 60 games in a season since 2019. If Ben Simmons calls it a career, is his career a disappointment? And I think the obvious answer might be yes. He did make 3 All-Star games. I guess it depends on how much you blame him for the injuries. Matt, I'll start with you.
Haize and I both think you're crazy. We're like, yes, of course it's a disappointment. You can't have been exiled from the team that drafted you with your fans forever hating your name without you leaving of your own accord. Like, they wanted to get rid of the guy. Haize, look, there's taxes, there's fees. You got to pay your agent. There's escrow. That dude made $203 million in his career. Yeah. He is $203 million. He's 28 years old. He's got all this life ahead of him with $200 million in his pocket. For me, if he hangs it up, it's always just going to be like, it's going to be a real shame. The injuries definitely deprived him of something, but to me, it's more, he really could have been great, and he didn't have the attitude to survive. He's one of those guys that thought he was really awesome and also like didn't have the drive to kind of push through it. And I don't have the drive to push through. I can't work as hard as NBA players have to, but it's a shame because he could have changed the game with the way that he played, and there was never the mindset to work on it. But I will also always wonder what happened to all these guys that the Sixers drafted. What happened to Markelle Fultz? What happened to Ben Simmons? Protect Tyrese Maxey at all costs. Put the man in bubble wrap.
We can talk about Ben Simmons calling it a career, but a career called Ben Simmons a while ago, I think, is what happened here. Shout out to Ben Simmons for still being productive. He's still been a solid on-ball creator at times over the last couple of years, but it's been on life support for the better part of the last 3 years. And Ben Simmons' heart doesn't feel like he's in it. So I wish I could say I was surprised when I heard about him thinking about calling it a career and retiring, but it's like, yeah, it's been The Walking Dead for the last couple of years. That's just the reality of it. Doesn't seem like his heart's in it anymore. Doesn't seem like he loves the game of basketball. And so, to Matt's point, you've made a lot of money in your career. You can retire. You can do something. You can go back to Australia, invest in basketball in that country. You can do a lot of things, but when it comes to NBA and Ben Simmons, him calling it a career is not a huge shock. Is it a disappointment? Yes, because he was such a unique player. Like Ben Simmons was, and what he was defensively was the thing that made him special. I know he scored 16, 17 points per game over the course, 3 years in a row, and that was great. But him defensively offered so much of a mismatch for that team, and the potential was so great there. It just never was maximized. He could be one of the biggest what ifs in recent NBA history.
Well, let's do that hypothetical. Let's imagine that Ben Simmons is still at his peak, all-star form, 15, 16 points per game, 8 to 10 assists per game, doing all the things that Ben Simmons was doing at a really high level, all NBA level defense. If you could just plop him onto any roster in the NBA, what would be the best fit, most fun fit? Where would we like to see Ben Simmons at his prime play this year?
Honestly, I kind of think Oklahoma City is not a bad option.
It's not a bad option at all.
So, I mean, look, it's hard to say any player is a bad option on OKC, but I wrote this when he was at LSU, that the future I saw for him was, what if you took Draymond Green and made him way, way, way better? Now, Draymond's way better player than Ben Simmons, but I'm talking about the potential that Ben had. If Ben could have made a layup, if Ben could have developed a jumper, if Ben could have manage those things, because his passing ability as a big, you put him in that short roll situation and it's absolutely devastating. Honestly, Chicago would be really interesting too. You put him there with Giddy and Io and Kobe, and that combo of being able to work with that with his defense, I think Billy Donovan would do wonders with him. So that's another one that I would really look at. I think both those guys would do it, but I really did bill him as this guy could be mega Draymond Green. And it just goes to show you that what makes Draymond special is not just the basketball talent and the mind, it's his drive to be great. And that's what separates a lot of dudes.
I agree with all the teams that Matt put out there, but I'm going to throw a different one. I'll say Minnesota. I think his playmaking ability and his defense, I think him with Anthony Edwards, I would love to see him in Minnesota right now.
It's a great call. Let's talk about the Hall of Fame. Carmelo Anthony, Dwight Howard, and Sue Bird headline a Hall of Fame class that's going to be inducted on Saturday night. Haize, whose enshrinement speech are you most looking forward to watching?
Ooh, that's great. I'll say Dwight Howard's. I can't wait to see what Dwight Howard says. Not that he's the most excited inductee for me, but for the speech part of it, I can't wait to see what Dwight Howard, because I think he's going to throw shots at a couple of people as well while he gives his induction speech.
By the way, shout out to Adrian Wojnarowski going in for the Kurt Gowdy Award for, I believe, Innovator is what it is, or Insight Award. Also, George Blaha, one of my absolute favorite league pass announcers for the Detroit Pistons. George is an absolute legend. I am so excited for him to be able to get to go into the Hall. Of the guys, how about Danny Crawford? I'm really excited to hear with Danny Crawford, the stories that he's going to tell as an old official. I think that one's pretty amazing as well. Sue Bird, I think that's going to be, I think, the highlight of the weekend as well. Wes, are you psyched that Mickey Harrison's going in? Are you psyched?
It'd be nice to hear him talk one time. Like he's gonna have to say something. A speech. I don't even know what his voice sounds like. This will be great. When do we get? So we got announcers. Obviously, I'm not taking anything away from the great announcers who have been part of the Hall of Fame. I'm just waiting for the podcast wing to open so that we all make it in a few more years. So, but I guess we have to retire for. I don't know how that works. It's Friday. So we're going to end the week the way we always do, with our favorite things of the week. Haize, we'll start with you.
What's been my favorite thing of the week this week? I was talking to you guys about this off air before we started recording. It would be my son. He had a proud papa moment this week. Got off the bus. He had a little boys will be boys moment. So it's definitely my son. And also, when I was watching football last night, my son, who was literally in probably a 2-hour long 2K game, came into the room, was like, "Wait, you're watching football?" and sat down, grabbed 2 of my hot wings, and watched the rest of the game with me. It was a great moment.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
I will go with Eurobasket play. It's been awesome seeing these guys, absolutely go at it. Jokic having to really press himself in some of these games. Domantas Sabonis shut me up after I said he doesn't belong in the conversation with Jokic. He still doesn't. It's been really good. I'm always kind of somebody that's like, man, I don't want to do like a whole tournament. It's my off season. I'm working on off season stuff, but like, it's been just such great basketball, man. It's been great hoop. Lauri Markkanen, see, all the Portugal getting the win that it got. It's just been really awesome. And there's a lot of guys that are showing real growth in their games if you watch Eurobasket.
I'm also here for daytime basketball. The games start 8 a.m. Eastern time. It's over by the end of business hours. I'm here for it. I love it. For me, Hurricanes beat Notre Dame. Love that to kick off college football season. Should mention my daughter is a week old now. So if we're doing kid stuff, I got to shout out my daughter as well. And then and obviously, guys, getting to do the show with you all week. That's been awesome. Doug Branson, that's a big mustache to fill. Obviously, I can't do that part of it, but hopefully the listeners weren't too disappointed with Doug's first week gone. But that'll do it for us today. If you like what you heard, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Thanks to Matt and Haize for their expertise every day. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen. We'll see you right back here next week.